What the Sam Hill's going on here?
The Rewatch Podcast presents the Lois and Clark Rewatch, dedicated to the series Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman on ABC. Join us each week as we investigate the origins of the Man of Steel and uncover crime in Metropolis. Send your feedback to the Rewatch Podcast at gmail.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast or follow us on Twitter at rewatchpod.
Oh, hey! Let's get back to it.
And welcome back to the Rewatch Podcast and our Lois and Clark Rewatch. I'm Corey.
And I'm just gonna make like a tree and get out of here.
It's make like a tree and leave.
Whatever.
Yeah, subtle, but
yes.
Those of you who get it, well done.
I hope they all get it. I hope. Come on, geek cred here. You guys all have to get that.
You sound like an idiot when you say it wrong.
Hello, anybody home?
Okay, well, thank you for joining us, everybody. As always, we're here to discuss 2 more episodes of Lois and Clark, and this week's headline reads, Night Weapon.
Ooh.
The story of a man who does not exist. Night
exactly.
Weapon.
Night Weapon. Or it could be like a commercial for like a bedroom product. Right?
The 2 episodes this week are 'Twas the Night Before Maximus and Lethal Weapon. But
yes.
Before we get into our discussions this week, quick follow-ups.
So, yeah, we talked about Darlene, the actress who played Darlene last week, and we're like, man, she hasn't really done too much at all. You know, it just was here, and that was kind of it. And the reason that she hasn't done, well, I mean, not the reason, but I guess she's not really an actress, but she is actually Dean Cain's sister.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I don't know where I must have missed that on. It was on the I think it was on the Lois and Clark wiki, and when I was looking at it, I must have just somehow I missed that. I don't know how I missed it, but somehow I missed it. And yeah, that's his sister. So I was like, oh yeah, Crescinda Cain was her name, and I even mentioned her name I think last week, but yeah, just forgot.
Didn't tick at all.
Nope, did not tick.
There you go. I did not know. I speculated that it was like a producer's brother's wife or something, but
right. Well, you're close. You're close. Yeah.
And a little bit more, not really a follow-up as it is more news. It was announced this week by Dean Cain himself that Terry Hatcher is going to be appearing on Supergirl, just as he is right now. He, of course, plays Jeremiah Danvers, and he couldn't say the character that she'd be playing, but that she will have an overarching storyline on the show.
Cool.
So we're going to have our titular Lois and Clark back together on the big screen. Oh, well, on the small screen.
Right. That's cool. I wonder, I mean, they've got to have them have some scenes together somehow.
Yeah, you'd want to hope so.
So that's cool. No, yeah, I did see that news article. I didn't really read it. The title, I was like, oh, well, that's cool. Nice, you know?
Yeah, very cool. So we did post a link on the Facebook page, folks. So head over there, facebook.com/rewatchpodcast. Check out the link. It's a pretty cool interview that he did on the Today Show.
Nice.
And speaking of Supergirl, have you been keeping up with it, Tom?
I haven't. I'll be catching up when it goes to Netflix. I've seen some of the episodes this season, but that and Legends of Tomorrow I have not kept up on at all. It's just Flash. That's the only one I've kept up on.
Well, I had to mention something. So spoiler alert if you haven't caught up on Supergirl, folks. But Tom has agreed to let me spoil the latest episode.
Yes. Because
at the end of the most recent episode, and probably it would have aired by the time this episode comes out, we had the appearance of Mr. Mxyzptlk.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
He came in right at the end of the most recent episode, so I assume he's going to be on the next episode as the main guy.
That's very cool.
So that's perfect timing for what we're talking about this week.
Awesome. Well, yeah, you'll have to. We'll talk about it a little bit later.
Yes. So our first episode discussion this week is 'Twas the Night Before Maximus, written by Tim Minear, directed by Mike Vijar, and this originally aired on December 15th of 1996.
Christmas Eve. The longest night of the year for all good little children. And large men in tights. Yeah, that's right. I know who you are. Know all about the secret identity thing. But don't worry, it doesn't matter to me. It won't matter to anyone pretty soon.
You're the one who's been following me.
You peeked.
You're not human.
I'm from out of town. The fifth dimension, to be exact. Name's Mxy. Mr. Mxy. It's spelled the usual way. And since the games were about to begin, I thought we should do the formal intro thing.
What games?
You wouldn't want me to spoil it, would you? Your floor, sir.
While getting ready for the holidays and Lois wishing for just a quiet Christmas with just her and Clark, they head to the Daily Planet while a seemingly magical being appears from out of nowhere and begins tracking down Superman. Clark leaves the planet to do a few saves, stopping a bank robber, as well as catching a millionaire named Caldwell who fell from his penthouse balcony, then returns and enters the newsroom's elevator, only to be confronted by a being identifying himself as Mr. Mxy, who promptly proclaims to let the games begin. As the clock ticks over to 4 o'clock, Clark finds himself magically back at noon and in the elevator with Lois, entering the planet exactly as they did 4 hours earlier. Clark is the only one to notice that he seems to be reliving the afternoon again, but with small changes. The tree Perry had brought in for the newsroom is smaller, and Clark's parents who were here earlier seem just slightly on edge, different from their earlier demeanor. Lois as well seems less confident about the story she was working on. Hearing the same call for help he heard earlier, he heads off and finds the same man robbing the bank. After apprehending him, the police are thankful, but they do complain about how they can't seem to make a dent in crime. Again, Superman rushes off to save Caldwell, but this time his demeanor is a lot angrier. Clark returns to the newsroom, but again, as the clock hits the top of the hour, he finds himself reset back to noon. Clark tries to explain to Lois that he seems to be living in a repeating loop, but she doesn't understand. Mxy appears and freezes time while he and Clark talk as he reveals he took away tomorrow, leaving everyone with no hope. And when there's no hope, they begin to break down as their lives get worse and worse, evidenced by not just Clark's saves and the Christmas tree, but also by Jimmy's Rhodes Scholar girlfriend slowly turning into a high school dropout with questionable morals, Ralph going from festive to falling on his face drunk, Lois's mother deciding to start drinking again, and Clark's parents arguing worse and worse. The TV confirms that the effect is also being felt around the world as peace talks that were successful earlier are now breaking down, with war possibly on the horizon. On the next reset, Clark immediately shows Lois what is going on by predicting what's going to happen in the newsroom. He explains about Mxy and asks her to find whatever she can on him while he rushes off to prevent the robbery from happening, and then, after saving the falling man, rushes back to the planet. As Jonathan begins to faint from a heart attack, everything freezes and Mxy appears and offers Clark a deal. Leave the planet forever for him to rule, and he will restore tomorrow. Clark refuses, and time ticks over, resetting again. Once again, Clark starts to explain to Lois, but there's no need, as she seems to remember everything now. Clark rushes off to perform his saves yet again, but this time turns them around by getting the bank robber a job at the bank after learning about his recent job loss that led to his crime, and asking Caldwell to help spread some cheer and love back into some displaced orphans after their orphanage burned down, with a little help from Perry, who was asked to play Santa Claus. As the pair try to spread some cheer and holiday hope around the newsroom, Mxy appears yet again. This time, however, he is shocked to see that everyone is happy and having a great time. As Perry Santa hands out gifts to the orphans, there is one gift left, which Lois hands to Mr. Mxy. He's so shocked and happy to receive a gift because no one has ever done so. As he reads who the gift is from, he reads his own name backwards, which is the magical word to send him back to the fifth dimension. As he disappears, the tree grows magically into a giant size, and the day is saved.
Brings a whole new meaning to the term statuesque, doesn't she?
What have you done with time?
I flipped it. I burped it. I took away tomorrow.
Why?
To get rid of hope. No tomorrow means no hope. Or no hope means no tomorrow.
Yeah, but why are you doing this?
Because I'm staying here in the third dimension, and no one's making me leave this time. Not anyone. Not you, not them, not anybody. And if you try, I'm gonna let them destroy themselves.
Destroy themselves?
Oh, you hadn't noticed? As time doesn't pass, they start to fall apart. Mortals don't hold up well without their tomorrows. Without hope, they die. See, creatures who live within third dimensional time, they're funny like that.
I live within three-dimensional time.
Oh, yes, but I kept you out for a reason, Mr. Invulnerable. Mr. You can't squish me with the biggest rock you can conjure. I wanted to show you there ain't nothing you can do to stop me. You can't hurt me, tough guy. I'm not free like these mortals. I'm fine. And to you, that might as well be magic. Let me know when you're ready to deal me.
So, let's delve deep into 'Twas the Night Before Mximus.
Yes, our reactions found a lot of stuff different from the script. So basically, when Lois is having her little panic attack in the beginning, she had an extra line in there where she's like, between being sentenced to death, living on the run as a wanted fugitive, and only just having had a decent exorcism performed on the place, they just threw that in there, but they cut it out. So it was just going to be an extra ranting from her, which I thought was kind of neat. But no need to recap. We know it all. We've been watching, But it's kind of funny to add that in there, all the things that have been happening to her. Lois was actually supposed to interact with that street Santa there. Like, she was supposed to give him some money and then force a smile because she's not exactly in the Christmas mood, and then she was going to walk away. And then, of course, Mxy shows up there.
Yeah.
Now, when Mxy shows up in the script, and this is what I'm interested to hear about the new Mxy Spitalik, he was described in the script as a dwarf, like Santa's elves, like that stature. And when he appears, he says to the people around him, because they're so shocked, he's like, "What? You never seen a diminutive godlike being from an alternate dimension before? Whatever." So he makes comment on that he's supposed to be a small person, which obviously they cut out because the actor they got was not a smaller person. Now, the bar scene that where he's sitting at the bar, Mxy's sitting at the bar, it was supposed to start off differently with a different camera shot, and they were showing the backs of people sitting on the stools, as like an intro shot, establishing shot for the bar. And when they get to Mxy, he was supposed to be floating just above the bar stool because he's so small. I can picture that in my head, and that looked good. In my head, it looks really good, and I could see that in a comic book.
Yeah, well, the way they do it in the episode is that there's just no bar stool there at all.
Right, exactly. Now, there was a line when he's talking to the bartender. There was a line about how the Celts knew how to treat an interdimensional being, so he really liked them. And then there was another line. There was another line about how he was responsible for the Titanic, And then when he disappears at the end of that scene, the bartender says, drinks are on me, because everyone looks frightened. He goes, "Free drinks." And it's funny. Some good comedy in there. It's too bad they had to take that out. Now, when Superman saves the billionaire, he's actually kind of angry in the script. He's like, he scolds the billionaire. He's like, if you're going to live in a high-rise, make sure the fire exits are clear and the railing secure, which is like an odd speech to get from Superman after you just saved your life. It's so strange. Like, I know we kind of picture Superman as that Boy Scout who says, "Now make sure you don't do this and that," but it just felt weird in this instance to sort of lecture the billionaire.
Yeah, he almost just died.
Yeah, exactly. Calm down. It's okay. And then when Caldwell says, "Get a real job," that wasn't in the script, so it appears to be improvised. When Mxy shows up, Clark says, "Okay, you've got my attention." And then Mxy goes, "Oh, good, because I love attention. It's even better if you worship me." And then they go into a conversation about how taking away tomorrow is really a philosophical question, isn't it? But either way, with you being a symbol of hope, you're out of a job now, aren't you? So just a little more interaction between the two of them. Mxy unfreezes time, and Jonathan says, "Oh, the farm is likely lost." And Martha says, "Yeah, we're probably doomed, sweetheart." So, a little more doomed talk between the two of them. It's just kind of funny. Like, I can imagine her very deadpan saying that, the way she was in this episode. Jimmy, when he says he doesn't see a future for her, for him and his girlfriend, he says, "I don't even see a future anymore." Sort of going to what Mxy's actually doing, like taking away tomorrow. When Lois tells Mxy to go, she says scram, but in the script she says blow, like blow, which scram makes more sense.
Well, I'm in the 90s, so blow.
Exactly. Lois and Clark have a good discussion on how to defeat Mxyzptlk. They start reasoning. They say, well, he only seems to appear at the beginning or at the end of each loop. Like, he doesn't really appear while things are getting bad. It's just at the beginning and the end. Maybe he's using all his power to make these things, more and more desperate each time. And he's draining himself, so he can only appear when he freezes time and it restarts. So they say, we can use that to try to beat him. Let's try to restore hope in the next 4 hours, and like a ripple effect, little by little, it'll transfer outward and we'll get miracles, because in the beginning of the episode they were talking about miracles. It was a nice little way of seeing them use their brains, but it just took up a lot of script time. Like, it was a pretty long scene. Perry, who's in the suit, the Santa suit, says, "I feel ridiculous. Grown man putting on a silly suit to give hope to... Sorry, Superman. No offense meant." Yeah. Pretty funny.
That's good.
And then there was extra dialogue from Ellen talking about what happened. And she's like, I don't know what's crazy, but I wish he was here. I wanted him back, Lois, but then I was angry at him for being him. He didn't stand me up. I stood him up. I got there. He wasn't there. They told me he had called, and he said he was going to be late. I panicked about the whole thing, and I just bolted. I just wish I could break these patterns. So she admits it was her fault, not Sam's fault, that the vacation broke down, which is, I think, was kind of neat, rather than just Sam, being Sam. And then finally, Clark at the end Lois and Clark had a line at the end where she says, "Clark, they don't even seem to notice what happened, everyone who's in the newsroom." And Clark says, "Well, as far as they know, it didn't. So all the effects of what Mxyzptlk was doing are just gone now. So everything's fine, and Jimmy's girlfriend is still a Rhodes Scholar."
Instead of what appears to have probably been a prostitute turned sudden Rhodes Scholar for no reason.
It did look like that, yes.
There you go. I love it.
Come on, everybody. Sing one more time. Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way.
You're not supposed to be delighted.
Hey, jingle bells,
Don't be so chipper. You have 10 acres of worthless seed, remember?
Singing, everybody.
How about a drink? Oh! Father Christmas. Your own kids hate you after all these years of neglect. Or did we forget? You think this little bit of love and good cheer is going to break the loop? That chance, Buster.
All right, that's it.
No, Santa. There's one left.
Once that clock ticks over, you'll be right back where you started, and I will be...
Here, Mxy.
Who's that?
Mixel.
Mxyzptlk?
That's it.
For me?
Yeah.
But no one's ever given me a Christmas present before.
Merry Christmas.
Can't imagine what it could be.
Read the card, see who it's from.
Oh, right. I've never done this before. To our beloved Mr. Mxyzptlk. Beloved.
Who's it from?
Right. Love. Kill Tip Sixum. Kill Tip Sixum. Oh! That's Mxyzptlk backwards. Oh, rats! I'm not... No! I'm not leaving. You can't make me. I'm taking over. You hear?
All right, so let's get into the main story. And this week's lead, Mxy's mischievous meddling makes a morose mankind.
You like that one?
Can you tell I practiced that one before we started recording?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, let's give him a little tongue twister this week.
I love it. All right, so Christmas episode. We're back to Lois hating Christmas.
Yes.
We pretty much see this every year at Christmas time.
Yeah,
Lois doesn't
stress.
like Christmas too much. Yeah, she stresses. Family problems. This year's no different. But Clark ever faithful, ever hopeful.
Yep.
This is their first Christmas as a married couple, and he's determined to make it work. But he has to he has to fly off to save the children's home, which is on fire. That's very Christmassy.
Yeah, I know.
And we get the sudden burst of Mr. Mxy's Pidlick breaking through the dimensional barrier, looking for Superman. So, Howie Mandel.
Yes. Did you expect that at all?
I did not. As far as I knew, he was just a washed-up comedian who now hosted American Idol.
Right. Yeah. I you know what? When I first saw it, back then, I knew who he was because I heard his stand-up on, like, Dr. Demento I used to listen to, and I'd seen him on that show, Bobby's World, so I was aware of who he was. I liked him.
Well, I know nothing about Howie Mandel outside of American Idol. I just assumed he had 15 minutes as a comedian back in the day and just wasn't anything too big. But from what you're telling me, he made appearances on all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, he does a particular voice, and he called it Bobby in his stand-up act, and it was like a very popular part of his act that he would do this Bobby impression, and he turned it into a pretty successful cartoon for kids called Bobby's World. Typical, give a moral type, cartoon, that type of thing back in the day. He was also an actor in various things. He was in a couple movies, nothing super great. There was one called, I think, Walk Like a Man, which was pretty good as a comedy, and then he was in Saint Elsewhere, was his big TV show. Where it was like dramatic, it wasn't just normal comedy stuff.
Well, I saw none of those things, so hence why I don't know Howie Mandel.
Yeah, I never really got into St. Elsewhere really at all. It was more of an adult type doctor show,
right.
And apparently had a very not tragic ending, but the ending to the show was apparently like of much debate, which I think like people either loved it or hated it, kind of like Lost, it was that type of ending. So, but yeah, he had quite a decent career before what he's doing now. But yeah, pretty good comedian, like I said, an actor as well. So he's got some credits to his name for sure.
And I have to say, I think this is a little outside of the box thinking for Mr. Mxy's Pidlick, He's not that dwarfish little being who chuckles and floats around and causes mischief. He's kind of here with a mission. Like,
he is, yeah.
He comes from the fifth dimension, which he doesn't like. I don't know, it makes him feel awkward or weird or something. And he enjoys being in the third dimension.
Yeah.
And he kind of has plans to stay there, and in order to do that, he has to destroy Superman and destroy Hope.
And that kind of goes along with what the comics are. Like, he always wants to come here, and stay here, and, they have to find a way to get him back there. Now, in the comics, of course, he's very small. He is a dwarf. He's very tiny. He floats around. He would probably come up to like your knee. He'd come up like Superman's knee at most. Even though he wears different things in the comics, his most popular costume is a yellow and purple like jumpsuit with like a bowler hat and a cigar.
But so they tend to do him in the animated movies and TV shows, right?
And they did that back in, I think it was I forget what season it was, but it was one of the Superboy TV shows. He appeared in there, played by a guy named Michael J. Pollard, who isn't super small, but he's smaller. He's a shorter guy, and he has the whole look of like the white hair that Mxy's has, and they actually put him in that outfit. So it has been done, but it does look a little ridiculous when you put him in that yellow and purple jumpsuit with the cigar and everything.
Here they kind of put him on this like frilly white button-down shirt or something.
Right, yeah.
It's not very over the top, but it's different to what everybody else is wearing.
So how does he look on the Supergirl? How does it appear he's going to look like?
Oh, well, this is the 21st century. Everybody's got to be gorgeous looking and young.
Oh, great.
So
really? Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see.
So he's along the lines of when Mr. Mxy's Pidlick appeared in Smallville. Did you see that?
Yes.
Because he was very slick looking. Okay, all right, okay.
But here, he's I don't know. It's like the character doesn't know what to do with his power because he pretty much has the power to just have anything happen at will. right?
Right. Oh, yeah, definitely.
And he uses that power to make the same day happen over and over again, Groundhog Day style. Another aspect I did not see coming.
Oh, yeah, I was excited for that. I was very excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's sitting in a bar talking about how, you know, he's going to destroy hope. And how do you destroy hope? Well, make it so there's no tomorrow.
Exactly.
And if you literally interpret that, it just means let's do the same day over and over again. I'm not actually going to destroy the world, so it will end tomorrow.
Right.
Tomorrow will just never come.
Exactly. It's a neat idea.
Yeah, and, you know, I like Groundhog Day. I think it's funny seeing how the same things can happen over and over again and how they can slightly change. And in this instance, every day people are going to get slightly more down and out and morose about the world.
Yep.
It's cool.
But it was cool to see the little changes from each time the time loop happened, the little things that were different.
And it pretty much starts with Lois and Clark entering the Daily Planet at noon, and Perry has shelled out for a gigantic Christmas tree, and there's talk of, you know, union amongst warring nations, and it's cool to see how that just slowly dissolves.
Exactly, yeah.
As the day goes forward.
Yeah, because eventually the tree becomes this little tiny thing that he found in the alley that's just, you know, like a Charlie Brown type tree, and wars breaking out across, you know, in those nations. And then, yeah, Lois is very proud of her work on her story, but then by the, you know, as the time loops again and again and again, she gets more, you know, she's less confident about it. She's like, oh, it sucks, it's terrible, you know, so it was neat to see that.
There was one point where it gets to how Clark's just going to pull Lois aside and tell her what's going to happen. And as they rush past, Perry's standing there with the glitter tree, and he just has this like throwaway line where he goes, yeah, well, I just dug it out of the basement.
Yeah, exactly.
It really made me laugh.
Yeah, no, there were so many little things like that, you know? It was interesting, the whole Martha and Jonathan thing too, you know, where they just came in early, you know, they were happy, they caught a cab from the airport. Like the airport had called them and said, oh yeah, we got you on an earlier flight, which airports don't usually do that. You know? Yeah. But yeah, we got you on an earlier flight. We got you here, you know, and then as the loops go on, you know, more of their insecurities, or more of Jonathan's insecurity about the farm and how it's doing, comes up. It starts off as a throwaway line where he's like, oh, the bank always covers us. We'll be fine, you know. But then as the loop goes on, he's like, well, they probably won't cover us. We're going to be in trouble. Oh, my gosh. We're going to lose the farm, you know?
We've lost half the crops. We're going down.
Seeing them take that progression was like, wow, you know, like that's tough, because they're always so steady. They're like a rock. And to see them like this was like, oh. And like when Jonathan has his little heart attack there, it's like, holy cow, no.
Even that was a great progression, you know. It starts with a throwaway line of, hey, aren't you watching your cholesterol, to him having a heart attack and almost dying.
Exactly.
It's full on.
That was shocking though. Like he sold that heart attack, you know.
Really?
What a great job of acting there by Eddie Jones. Like, it was like, oh my God, no. He can't die.
And we also have a couple of side things that happen during the day as well. Superman has to save this rich guy from falling out of his apartment on the 50 whatever floor, and that slowly dissolves from, you know, thank you so much, Superman, what can I do to help? Can I give you some money or something? To I actually threw myself off that building because I have no one to spend Christmas with.
Exactly, yeah. Very good, very, very dramatic.
But I have to admit that the first time he saves the old man and he's going on about, like, what can I do? I'm so grateful. Can I give you some money? I immediately thought you could rebuild the children's home, maybe. You know, the one that just broke down?
Exactly.
So when it comes back around to that, I'm like, it's about time you thought of that.
Yeah, you knew that's going to be part of it, yes. I was a little surprised at the bank robber, the way that played out. You know, like, it's interesting because we've never, you know, taken a look at the bank robbers, like anyone who's committed like just a petty crime in Metropolis before, we've never looked at closely. But this time, you know, like he's robbing the bank and Superman goes, saves him again, or stops him again, you know, and then at some point decides to look into to the robber's situation, finds out he was just fired or laid off, a couple of days ago, and that's why he was robbing the bank, because he needs money, for his family. And Superman goes and decides to get him a job at the bank, which, I mean, we've never done that before. We never looked at the petty criminals that are captured before. Maybe they have similar stories, and they just need a helping hand or something.
That is a good twist of fate, from bank robber to bank security.
Exactly. Like, he's not a bad person. He just got in a bad situation. Superman was able to help him out, which is good. Given hope.
Yeah. And then there's Jimmy and yet another new girlfriend. This time it's the one.
Yeah, when you were watching it, he says that, right? He says that, and I made a note in my notes. I was like, Jimmy says she's the one. The one for this week, maybe.
But she's a Rhodes Scholar.
She's a Rhodes Scholar. Which means Jimmy, she's gonna smarten up and realize that she's gonna move on very quickly.
Yeah. Is she gonna put up with Jimmy hanging out with his buddies till 1 a.m?
Yeah. Exactly.
Eating pizza.
Exactly.
Well, she slowly devolves into somebody who might do that, I guess.
Yeah, she does. She does.
Hooker chewing gum, wearing the leopard print.
That was I liked when Lois took her into the bathroom and she comes out looking just like she did at the beginning. That was a major change. Where did she get the dress from? First of all, this nice dress. Yeah. But, Lois does go undercover a lot, so maybe she has a locker there at the Daily Planet with extra clothes for undercover stuff.
But it's like you were saying, in the investigation, where it kind of seemed like it should have reverted back where nobody actually remembered any of that.
Right.
But as it stands, it seems more like everybody just sort of overcame how low they were. So from their eyes, they were just really low the whole time.
So nothing really has changed. Yeah, she says she gave up her Rhodes Scholarship, but really she just says that she didn't actually give it up, because it's only over the course of 4 hours. It's not like she could just call and say, yeah, I don't want it. It's that's probably what she just said over the course of 4 hours.
So 4 hours ago, she was going to be a Rhodes Scholar, but instead decided to put on hooker tights and chew gum.
Exactly. I mean, like the deleted scene, that iReactions found, it said that, once Mxy was gone, it seems like all the effects were gone, so everything was sort of reset, and they don't even realize what had happened, But they leave it more ambiguous in the actual aired episode. They don't say that.
And while all this is going on, I thought Howie Mandel was great. He would stop time and everybody would have to freeze, and that was a great effect of how everybody would have to stand still while Mxy and Clark are interacting and having their discussions.
The part I noticed when the woman was throwing the milkshake at Ralph, I thought that was
Ralph,
that's one scene that I was like, oh, that when they froze, I was like, that's cool.
That looked really good.
We sort of went all over the place.
We did. Yeah.
We did not stick to our outline at all. We just we're just pulling things out. Yeah. Okay.
Well, at the end of the day, I knew where they had to go, and that was to get Mx's Pitalik to say his name backwards.
Yes.
And I was curious the whole time how they were going to accomplish this. And it just ends up being Perry gets dressed up as Santa Claus because, he's been thinking about how he's not been able to spend much time with his children over the years. And they give Mx's Pitalik a present and say that it's from his name backwards.
Right.
So he has to say it when he reads the card. Cheesy, but they had to get there somehow.
But that's how they do it in the comics usually. You know, it's like it happens very quickly like that. I remember, many, I had some records, Superpower records they were called, and that's how they got rid of them. It was very quick and simple, and a note was passed or something's written up in the sky, and he'd be like, what does that say? Kill Tim Zix? Oh no, that's my name backwards. And he disappears,
Yeah, it was a good reaction to it too, as he reads a clip, kill Zix.
Yeah.
That's the Zix Pitalik backwards. Oh, gosh darn.
Yes, yeah. The gosh darn was a bit much, but yeah.
It was funny. It was light. And,
yes, it was.
It could have been way worse, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, definitely. I really wish they had done just a little bit of effect on Howie Mandel to make him appear smaller, They could have, while they were shooting, they could have said, all right, Clark, look at his like stomach. You know, when you're talking to him, face his stomach. Put your eyes on his stomach, and we'll shrink him down to that size. Because that would have been great. Because it made no sense to me when Clark says to Lois, "I need you to look up anything about dwarves and imps," and because why?
Yeah.
This guy's not an imp. He's not a dwarf.
You just leap to that conclusion somehow.
Yeah, I think what happened was they had planned to do that. Like, obviously, in the script they described it, but then they didn't have the money to actually follow up maybe on that effect. So they just like, just leave it. It'll be fine.
And, it was a perfectly good ending. You know, even I was quite surprised, actually, that Lois's father showed up. Because I thought they were just trying to come up with an excuse to have him written out.
Right, not on screen.
But, they got him on screen for all of 30 seconds. Hey, I was going to show up, Ellen. But you weren't there when I got there.
Yeah, I know. It was good. It was good to see him. I was thinking, too, that he probably wouldn't show up. And she'd be like, all right, I'm off to meet your father, But it was nice to have them all together.
Yeah, her and her drinking as well. That was so weird. That was
good. There was a good, that was a good scene. There was a couple of good scenes there, and she's hitting on Ralph and everything at one point. It was good.
Getting into the bylines, the first one I did have was Ralph walking around, loving everybody.
Yes. Oh, that was a good progression to see him from festive in the beginning, to at one point just falling flat on his face drunk.
Getting into the eggnog, Ralph.
Right, yeah, and they sidestep him at one point and he falls. That was so good. I love that. It was good. It was good.
We talked about Jimmy's girlfriend and Perry's Christmas tree in the office. It was cool to see him lamenting about his boys. Not being
that
able
was
to,
cool.
Spend time with them, especially where we're going to go in the next episode.
Yeah, it ties into the next one, definitely. There is another thing here that's not really a byline from the show, but just in case people didn't know, there's actually, there's not just Mxyzptlk is not the only one from the Fifth Dimension. There's a bunch of other people who live there. Now, this one, I don't know if it was ever confirmed that this was a person from the Fifth Dimension, but Batman has a Mxyzptlk as well. He's called Bat-Mite. He's just like Mxyzptlk. He's short, small, dwarf-like, has magical powers to do whatever he wants, except Bat-Mite dresses up in a Batman costume.
Oh, I do know that character. Yeah.
And he's just like Mxyzptlk, but he wants to be Batman's partner, and so he causes crimes to happen so he can help Batman, and it always goes wrong, And I think, when they do his origin, they made him from the Fifth Dimension. I don't know if that's how it was always planned, but yeah, it's kind of fun. They have some good comic book issues where Mxyzptlk and Bat-Mite sort of like team up or they fight, and it's pretty cool. They're funny episodes. They're funny issues, I should say.
They get a little like Roadrunner and Coyote kind of thing going there. Yeah.
They do, yeah.
I do remember that. Oh, yeah. Wow. There it is. All right. Shall we get into this week's quote vote?
All right.
What's everybody standing around for? This is a newspaper, not happy hour at Buckingham Palace. What are we here, the Daily Planet, or second stringers from the Weehawken Gazette?
Am I making myself perfectly clear?
All right, so we're back up in the votes. Got a few this
Yes.
week. Not a lot, but a few. And we have a winner. So, cue the music.
Hick is discussing his health with Vincent Price.
Perhaps you might consider exploring an alternative approach.
Anything. I just can't stand the frustration of doing nothing. What do I do?
Lie down.
Lie down? What do you have planned for me?
Well, your approach has always been to act, to move forward. This time, try turning inward. Find that deep mental focus that will enable you to control yourself. Game?
Okay. Hick lays down.
Picture in your mind's eye a white beach, gentle surf, clear blue skies crest like graceful clouds, the songs of chimps afire with the mating urge.
Vincent?
Oh, sorry. Yay.
Yay.
And
scene. That was good. I like
good
it.
scene. We'll talk about it.
Yes.
Okay, because we're getting into episode 2 today. The episode is Lethal Weapon, written by Grant Rosenberg, directed by Jim Charleston, and this originally aired on January 5th. Happy New Year, 1997.
Flying, check. Super hearing, check. Super strength, check. Now, let's have a listen to your heart and lungs. Now, take a deep breath and blow out. Oops. Superman, your powers have kicked into overdrive.
I knew that before I came in here, Doc.
Uh-oh. Little crabby today. I understand.
I'm sorry. I guess the question is, what is causing this?
Could be partial complex seizures brought on by random synaptic firing in your temporal lobe.
Oh, gee, that sounds terrible.
Look, I'm gonna run every test I can. Then I want you to go home and relax, soak in a tub, and do nothing.
But I'm Superman.
So, you can't play a little golf? Superman, you have a medical condition that is potentially dangerous. Maybe not to you, but to everyone around you.
Superman finds himself unable to control his powers, which have seemingly gone into overdrive with no explanation. Every time he tries to save someone from even a simple robbery, he finds himself overshooting the distance and strength needed, ending up miles deep underground or causing huge amounts of damage to buildings. The reason for Superman's extra potent powers lies in the element of red kryptonite, which has been obtained by Perry White's recently released from prison son, Jerry, as part of a money-making scheme. Father and son have been estranged for many years due to not only Jerry's crime, but also Perry's own dedication to his work. While Jerry attempts to build up their relationship with extravagant gifts, he doesn't fail to notice the relationship that has developed between Perry and Jimmy over the years. Meanwhile, another father and son reunion is taking place with Mr. Gadget, a one-time show host turned criminal, and his own son, a policeman. Now that Gadget has paid his debt to society and has been released from prison, his son steals his signature weapon from the crime warehouse, and the two decide to take revenge on Metropolis, promising to destroy the city unless the mayor agrees to pay. After accidentally hurting Lois with just a hug, Superman has been attempting to get control of his powers with help from Dr. Klein, while Jimmy and Lois look for hard evidence linking Jerry to red kryptonite, the only reason Superman's powers have gone out of whack in the past. Once Superman hears of the threat against the city, he goes to find Gadget's machine to destroy it, but due to Jerry once again using the red kryptonite, his powers go haywire. Perry pleads with Jerry to stop whatever he's doing so they can work it out together, while Gadget's son heads off to kill Perry for his son's betrayal. With the red K back in its box, Superman destroys the machine and rushes off to save Perry, but is then shot by a kryptonite-laced bullet under authorization from the mayor, who feared more destruction from Superman's overpowered powers. Luckily, the shot only grazes him, and it turns out that just a little bit of green kryptonite in his system can neutralize the red, and the powers return to normal.
Oh, this is fabulous. 2 bottles of water, a couple of lemons, and a half a tuna sandwich. And this is frozen salad. Guess I could beat myself to death with it.
Maybe I can do something else with it.
Are you sure you want to try that, considering?
Come on, honey. Just a little zap. I mean, we don't have anything else to feed the boss.
Well, give it the equivalent of 2 hours at 400 degrees and we should be in business.
No problem.
That's it. Hold it right there. Ding.
Uh-oh.
Time's up. We're moving into seriously well done.
I can't turn it off.
Clark?
Stop!
Sam, hell was that?
Oh, no.
Look out! Lois! Is everything okay in there?
Everything's just fine.
Good,
All right. Our reactions has hooked us up with plenty in our investigation here.
Yeah. Now, this first thing, though, is something that I actually found that wasn't mentioned anywhere. I didn't see it on any of the wikis or anything like that. But there's a reference to Mr. Gadget says, here's the Kerr building outside of town. There's no subtitles on these episodes. For some reason, the subtitles on the DVD are only in French and Spanish or something. So, I assumed the Kerr was Kerr. And I was like, oh, that's got to be something. So I looked it up. I searched up Kerr for DC Comics. And what I came up with was there's a character in DC Comics, Joseph Kerr, which was apparently an alias of the Joker, because Joe occur. So I don't know if they were planning that reference, but I thought that'd be cool because later on they do make a reference to Boy Wonder, and I'm like, oh, there's another little Batman reference there. So maybe the writers were thinking about that, maybe they weren't, but I'd like to think that they were. So from the script, Clark wonders about his powers with Lois. Like why did they go crazy when he comes back to the card game? And he's like, I don't know, maybe it was a solar flare, or, well, it's nighttime, a lunar flare, or maybe too much MSG in my lunch, maybe. I don't know, I'm just tired. Whatever it was, we've got more important things to think about. How many cards? Because they're playing their strip poker. So.
Are lunar flares even a thing?
I don't think so. But hey, he's just tired and he wants to see some naked Lois. So,
yeah, that's true.
Who's going to blame him for saying lunar flares, all right? Perry actually has a line that noted that the tie that he got from Jerry was Italian silk. It's very, very nice. And Jerry says, oh, yeah, a friend of mine imports them. So not just a normal tie. Perry is shocked when Jerry talks about his new job, and Jerry goes, speechless? That's something I've waited for my whole life. Because, Perry's always got something to say. The robber tells Gadget that, hey, you're my idol, even more so after you knocked over the Bank of England. So apparently Gadget, did some pretty big crimes back in the day, the Bank of England. This was interesting that they cut this out. Jerry had a line about his mother, which is, of course, Alice, and he said, yeah, hey, Mom says hi, and she's dating her rhinoplasty surgeon. Oh, okay.
Wow.
Well then, thanks for digging the knife in. Yeah. Gadget talks to his son Carter, and it was pretty much like it was in the episode, but just a little bit more. He says something like, "Carter, your mother really did a number on you. I'm sorry. Look how you live. You're a tragedy, and your dear old dad is a star. Well, I'm going out with a bang, kid, and so are you. And Carter was supposed to say, can we go fishing? Like very emotional in the script. It was supposed to be. But he just a little bit more digging at Carter. Yeah. I think we got a lot. We got the good idea of how he views him.
Yeah, we'll talk about this weird relationship there.
Yeah. Let's see. Jerry had a line about wanting to make a TV show about prison when he meets Lois and Clark, and they're talking about what he's doing and what his job is going to be or whatever. He says something about wanting to make a TV show about prison. So it doesn't really go anywhere, so that's probably why they cut it out. This was interesting. Perry says that he won't need the retirement. He's like, you cashed in your retirement? He's like, I won't need it. They'll have to carry me out of the planet in a pine box, which is totally in character. Totally in character.
He did just get his job back, so.
Exactly. True. Let's see. When Jimmy gives his findings on Jerry to Lois, she sort of has like a line to herself where she's like, sounds like Perry's son is in deep trouble. Just a little, a nothing line that we don't really need.
Jimmy's like, who are you talking to?
Yeah, exactly.
You're talking to the camera now?
Exactly. Clark tells Lois a story about the werewolf movie, the Wolfman. And apparently he says, yeah, it's a story, about a guy who gets these strange powers and turns into a werewolf and hurts people, but not on purpose. And in the end, everyone has to shoot him. They have to take him down with a silver bullet to protect the people. And he's like feeling like he's the Wolfman now, like he's going to be taken out because he's becoming dangerous. It's a little, I don't know, a little ham-handed. I think Lois knows who the Wolfman is. I mean, a werewolf at least, It's like, it's not that outside of the realm of normal human knowledge, I think most people know. Dr. Klein asks Superman how he feels while Superman's floating up and down. How do you feel, floating up and down? And Superman says, it has its ups and downs. And then after that scene, Klein very nervously, it says in the script, drinks from a beaker again. So I love that. I love that they had that in there. I wish they'd kept it in.
Yeah, it's a little eccentricity that I think wouldn't go unnoticed, at least by us.
Exactly.
Cool.
Thank you all for coming on such short notice. I'll be brief. There has been growing concern over the recent damage to the downtown area caused by Superman. I have been assured by Superman that he will personally take care of it, and that it happened accidentally while testing a new crime-stopping procedure. Everyone in Metropolis can rest easy that things are fine and back to normal. Superman, what are you doing here?
I try to be everywhere, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor may not be fully briefed on my situation, so I'd like to add a few words. As you know, there have been a lot of rumors concerning my condition. Rumors are far more dangerous than the truth, and I never hide from the truth. I have a small health problem. My doctors are treating me, and they expect a full and complete recovery. That is all. Thank you.
Yes, I was going to get to that part, Superman. No questions. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Superman, a word. I appreciate your situation, but you must appreciate mine. Panic would ensue if the community felt that a being as powerful as yourself were out of control.
Mayor, I am not out of control.
Be that as it may, I must request that for the time being you allow the city to handle its own emergencies.
Your Honor, with all due respect...
I don't want to have to order you, Superman. Metropolis is off limits to you. I'm sorry.
Alright, so getting into the main story. And our lead here, Superman strikes City. So, Lois and Clark kicking off the episode, playing strip poker.
I like seeing them just like doing normal stuff like this. Not working, just hanging out at home, doing stuff that couples will do.
Yes, and this leads us into our mystery plot.
Yes.
Somebody kind of just jerry-rigged the bank door so the alarm would go off, just to expose old Soups to the infamous Red K.
I did forgot that Red K was coming back. I was glad to see it. I like the Red K episodes.
And it's affecting him differently this time. He's not apathetic. He's instead losing control of his power. Cool idea.
Yeah, I see. Like I said, the Red K episodes are always fun, like because you get a chance to mess around with like the norm. Like we said in the one he was apathetic, and the other one they transferred his powers, to other people. So that was with the Ultra Woman. So it's fun. They're fun episodes, and I like this. I was like, oh, Red K's back. I forgot.
Yeah, and of course we've talked about Red K and all the different kinds of kryptonite and so on and so forth. Firmly established now that Red K just is very
unpredictable.
Unpredictable. That's the word I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah.
It can just do all manner of things to mess with Superman. Then it starts to get confusing because we've got multiple bad guys going on here. Starting with Mr. Gadget. We don't get his actual name.
Nope.
He's just always known as Mr. Gadget. And his son, a police officer named Carter, played by Thomas F. Wilson of Back to the Future fame.
Yes, Biff.
So, what point does Carter have in this episode?
Nothing.
You get Thomas F. Wilson to play the part. He does virtually nothing.
The only reason he's there is because Gadget needs someone to give exposition to, He talks to him and explains, here's what we're going to do and why we're going to do it and how we're going to do it. That's the only reason he's there. They really didn't need the character, but they had to have some way to sort of explain why he was doing what he was doing. Because Mr. Gadget, to me, I think Mr. Gadget was supposed to be like Mr. Wizard. Do you remember Mr. Wizard?
I remember the Weather Wizard.
No. Mr. Wizard I remember watching Mr. Wizard on Nickelodeon when I was a young boy. And he was a guy who just did this science show. It was like a half-hour science show, and he had kids that were his helpers, and he would explain the principles of science through various experiments together with these kids, and it was always very informative and neat stuff. Like you'd have things he would make things float using chemicals, or he would have things explode, out in the backyard. They would have an explosion thing happening with this little volcano or something, and things floating in water, explain why this floats and that doesn't, and how oil separates. And it was really neat. It was a neat show to watch as a kid. Oh wow, look at all the stuff you can do with science, And so that's what I think Mr. Gadget was based on. Because for at least my generation, because I'm older than you, I'm in my 40s, and my generation remembers Mr. Wizard. I know because that was something that was on TV. It was just something that we watched. It was educational, something that the parents would be like, yeah, okay, that's fine.
And that's what they say he was, right? He used to be a kids' TV show host.
Exactly. Yeah.
Turned malicious bad guy.
Yep.
And he's got some sort of supersonic sound ray thing, and we've seen sound rays before.
Yes, yeah.
If you remember the British bad guy, rock star who made the Wall of Sound.
Yeah, he was awesome.
And they intermix this with Perry's son, Jerry.
Yes.
Have they ever mentioned that Perry's son is named Jerry before?
No, this is the first time. Yeah.
It took me a second to catch on that Perry and Jerry were rhyming names, but
yeah, in the comics he has a son, but it's an adopted son, a young African American boy, if I remember correctly. His name was Keith, and him and Alice adopted him. I'm not sure that if he had other kids as well. I just remember Keith being a pretty big part of the Superman stories in the 90s, I think it was, when I was reading.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
but Jerry, for some reason, is the one who's wielding the red K around the place.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He went to jail for some sort of check fraud.
Yes.
He was writing checks that he couldn't cash. And he went to jail and he got involved with, what's his name? Gene Nutrich.
Nutrich, yeah.
Yeah. Who, of course, turned over the red K to his daughters, and he has now, in turn, turned it over to Jerry. And he's making out like he's got a flashy job, and he's showering Perry with gifts and saying, I forgive you for being somewhat of an absent father. And
exactly.
They seem to be burying the hatchet. But he is, in fact, helping bad guys by exposing Superman to red K for money.
Yep.
And he kind of gets involved with Gadget. This leads us to hilarity ensuing as Clark tries to go about his regular day with powers that are going absolutely haywire. Some good scenes, you know. I didn't mind the stuff of him not being able to control himself. Perry and Jerry come to dinner. Lois hasn't prepared anything, so he has to try and cook a roast.
Right.
And his laser vision goes nutso on the kitchen.
Now, did you wonder, like, he gets rid of he turns off his heat vision because Lois turns on the water, so he aims it at the water, and it sort of just, he wears himself out of X-ray vision. But I was like, why wouldn't that just, like, destroy the sink, you know?
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't that just cut a hole in the sink, too? But, you go with it. It's fine.
Yeah, Perry yelling out to them like, hey, you guys need some help in there or something? And Lois crawling out, no, we're fine.
Like, this is like, that's the way my brain works. Like, I'm watching it and like he puts it in the sink and I'm like, well, wait, why isn't that breaking? Then I'm thinking, well, wait, maybe the sink is lead lined. I'm like, but wait, isn't lead poisonous? Maybe they wouldn't have a sink that's made of lead. I wonder, I should look that up. I'm like, no, I'm too busy right now.
Yeah, not to mention that the whole kitchen's on fire.
Yeah.
And Perry and Jerry are kind of like, okay.
Exactly. Pizza sounds great.
And we actually get a bit, I don't know, it kind of hits home a little when Clark realizes that he has bruised Lois just by touching her.
That was a good scene to have in there because he's used to holding back, Anyway, that's how I view it, and that's how Superman is in the comics. He's used to just holding back all the time. Like, it's a conscious effort on Superman's part, usually, to hold back because he is so strong. If he doesn't think about it, he could do just like he did last episode and rip a door right off the handle, like he did in the newsroom when he was arguing with Lois because he's not thinking about it. So he always is sort of trying to keep his powers in check. He's always concentrating on it, so he knows how much concentration it takes just to keep himself in check. But now he doesn't, because everything's been maximized. So now he has to relearn. Like, if this hadn't been solved, he'd have to relearn a whole new way of living. For his whole life, he's managed to keep things in check one particular way, and now he'd have to redo that thinking, which a big adjustment would be a major big adjustment.
Yeah, what do you think everybody was thinking when he ripped that door off? Because everybody in the newsroom saw it.
I'm sure they were just like, oh, it must have been like off its hinges a little bit or something. I don't think, I wouldn't think he's Superman. No.
He doesn't seem to do a very good job of hiding that he's just ripped this door right off the hinges.
No, he doesn't.
He also gets in on a press conference with the mayor. He openly tells everybody that he's dealing with a health issue right now.
That was odd. It was a weird scene.
Just to have that out there, that Superman is vulnerable in some kind of way, that his health is at risk.
Yeah, that would cause more crime, I would think. People take advantage of it or something.
And he's, of course, enlisting the help of Dr. Klein, who can't quite figure it out, but does attempt to do some sort of, relaxation, meditation, inward thinking kind of technique, which is, I guess, one way to do it. Doesn't really work.
No.
He hiccups and destroys the whole apartment, which, I don't know. I'm not sure that was too believable when he says I hiccuped. If he said it's like I sneezed and the whole apartment got like blown apart like that, I don't quite know how hiccuping destroyed the apartment that way.
That's how it started, and then it sort of like snowballed from there, I think, is what he was trying to get across, you know? It was a hiccup that started it, and then he did this to get rid of the hiccup, and then this happened. In any case, this scene confirms that glass tube is the fish tank for real, because it's smashed there on the floor, and poor Lois's fish are apparently dead now, so...
I didn't even think of it that way. Yeah.
Yep.
What I wish they had delved into a little bit more was Jimmy uncovering Jerry's secret.
Yes.
Because, you know, Jimmy's kind of like a son to Perry. You
Yeah,
know, they've kind of set that up. And now here he is with some information about Perry's real son.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they let that play out to its fullest
No.
extent. You know, Perry
I
maybe
was hoping
getting,
that.
thinking that Jimmy's trying to do something malicious or something.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I thought. Like, once I started getting into it, I sort of remembered it. But yeah, at first I was like, oh, this is going to be a good episode because Jimmy is like his son. You know, they go fishing together and they hang out together. And, you know, that's something that Jerry didn't get. So there would be jealousy there, you know, and like we've had Jimmy with his nose for news before, and he's on to Jerry right away. You know, he knows something's not right away. So there's so much potential, you know, for Jimmy to have come out here as an investigative reporter, you know, and for Perry to sort of be like, no, everything's fine. He's my son. You know, get off this story. You know, it doesn't mean anything. It could have been so much better than just having, you know, Biff in the episode. You know, like we didn't need that in this episode. We could have gotten rid of that, and this would have been a great, you know, a great Jimmy episode. It would have been awesome. Well, the way you think about it, like he tells Lois, and Lois is like, well, don't say anything to Perry yet until we have some evidence. And then Lois sort of takes over. You know, and it's like, well, but Jimmy was doing this. Let him, you know, let him do this. Lois, What are you doing? You get every byline. Let Jimmy have this.
And this gets me to my point about the ending of this episode because it's just so packed full of people and stuff.
Yeah.
That it just leads to a pretty lackluster ending, really.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Because you got Gadget and Carter, and he's going after $1 billion ransom, and then you got Jerry, who's struggling with whether or not he wants to keep exposing Superman to Red K, and then it's just like, hey, Jerry, stop doing that. Okay. Hey, Carter, like, your dad's a bad guy. Do you want to help? Yeah, sure. And that's just how it ends.
Yeah, and then Superman gets shot.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they think his powers are still going haywire when he's trying to destroy Gadget's machine, and the green K that gets exposed because the bullet grazes him, it neutralizes Red K, apparently.
Apparently.
So, yes.
And that's it. Perry's kind of just left a bit heartbroken as
I will
Jerry's taken
say
back to jail.
That Perry being heartbroken there was deep. That was emotional. You could like see it in his eyes. He
It's
was
Lane
just
Smith again,
crestfallen.
man. He brings it.
Exactly. He's amazing. You know, it was such a good ending for that story in particular. Just the way he felt. You know, he gives the watch to Lois.
Oh, giving the watch back.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You know, it's like, just get rid of that for me, will you? You know.
Yeah. Make sure it gets
So-
back to who it has to get back to.
Exactly. It was so good. So
Yeah.
good.
That's good.
The thing that was a little odd, sort of goes into the bylines a little bit, is that right after that very emotional, deep scene by Perry, Lane Smith, Lois and Clark are like, let's go play some strip poker. You know, like right after that. You know? It's like your boss just had a very emotional time here, and you're not going to feel bad for a little bit and then go do the dirty, you know? I mean, come on.
It's true. It's true.
It just seemed a little out of place, that last scene. You know, I understand because they want to leave you on a good feeling and everything, but sometimes you don't need to do that in an episode.
And getting into those bylines, I guess.
Yeah.
The whole thing with the strip poker at the beginning, Clark raises Lois everything she has on. She loses that hand, takes off a sweater, and then deals the next hand. I'm like, no, Lois, you're supposed to be getting naked.
Only on HBO. Not on ABC primetime.
But yeah, of course, Terry Hatch is not going to get naked.
In fact, actually, speaking of HBO and that, like, they wouldn't show that, obviously. But I think it was at this episode. Let me take a look here because I want to make sure. Yeah, with this episode, with Lethal Weapon, this was the first episode that Lois and Clark was moved to 7 p.m. on Saturday nights.
Oh, okay, right. Because it's a new year, of course. Yeah,
exactly. So even with that change, they still wouldn't show Lois getting naked. But still, yeah, this is the first one where they took them off Sunday nights, and sort of this is kind of what kills the show.
Yeah.
You know?
The other thing I noticed too was Jerry's introduction to the episode.
Yes.
Did you pick up on this? Perry walks out of his office, says, "Hey, I just got off a call with Jerry. He says he's in town."
Yep.
They talk for about a minute and a half, and then Jerry shows up there immediately.
Yeah.
What did he
immediately.
Did he just call from downstairs and say he was coming up? Because that's not what Perry said.
Yeah, I thought that was weird too. So, yep. I'm with you.
Oddly staged, oddly scripted.
And now we have the mayor. I don't know. Did you recognize the mayor at all?
No, not really.
Okay, so the mayor, actually, when she came out, I was like, oh, I know her. She is Nancy DeSalt, which, going back to sitcom Tom, she was on Too Close for Comfort. I don't know if you remember that show at all. It was
never saw that. I'm not even sure I know what that is.
That was the 80s. It was basically Ted Knight. You know Ted Knight?
No.
Ted Knight was the guy. Well, first of all, he was in Mary Tyler Moore Show, but he was the voice on the Super Friends of, like, meanwhile at the Hall of Justice,
okay, right.
Batman. Yeah, so
and they had the Hall of Justice in this episode.
Yeah, and they did have the Hall of Justice. That's right, they did. So yeah, this was a Ted Knight show. He was the father, and the mayor here, Nancy DeSalt, she played his wife in the sitcom, and basically they live, her and her parents, two parents, Ted Knight and Nancy DeSalt. They live together, of course, they're married, but their children are grown up, and they also have a guy named Monroe that lives in their duplex, or next door, who's like the comedy character, and then the two daughters move in back home with them, and they call it Too Close for Comfort because obviously they're adults living at home. So
okay.
It was a good show. It ran for quite a while, like 8 years, 6 years, or 7 years, something like that. So I used to watch it as a kid. It was very funny.
There you go. I did not know that.
Sitcom Tom, what did you do without me?
Well done, Sitcom Tom. The last little note I had here. We may not have gotten Klein drinking from a beaker, but his monkey fetish rears its head again.
Yes, I did.
We did it in the quote mode.
Yes.
There was that one episode where everybody went crazy, and then Klein was found, like, snuggling a gorilla toy or something.
It was pretty good.
He just loves those monkeys, man.
Yes.
It's a weird quirk, and we love you, Klein, for having them. All in all, I really liked the Mr. Mix's Piddalik episode.
Yeah.
This one was fine.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Ruinous. Then, like I said, I think it's the same for both of them. They could have been way worse.
No, I thought they were both good. I enjoyed them both. You know, it wasn't like the presses, where I was like, I don't like this episode. But yeah, this one was good. I liked it.
Next time I start over, I really am starting over.
We'll be here.
Yeah, I'm sure Superman will put in a good word for you for doing the right thing at the end. Thank you, Dad.
I really wanted to believe he changed. I guess I was just blind to the obvious. Maybe I'm crazy, but I really do believe the kid started to love me.
I do too.
Yeah, well, good night, you two. Oh, honey, can you see this gets back to where it belongs?
So how are you feeling? Got a little of that kryptonite in your bloodstream.
Yeah, but just a little. And ever since then, the effects of the red kryptonite seem to be completely gone. Maybe a little green counteracts the red. So, I'm gonna go go back home and finish our little poker game.
Oh, okay. You don't stand a chance.
Probably right.
Excuse me, what did you just do?
Well, you were such a good poker player. I figured that might be as close to a win as I get tonight.
Well, you should let me know when you're going to do that. I'll put on my good lingerie.
All right, let's check out some back issues.
All right, so we got some. They were talking about rumors, I guess, about who was going to play Mxy Spitalik, and they had mentioned that Robin Williams would be good, Paul Reubens, Pee Wee Herman, of course. They talked about Dana Carvey, even John Delancey. You know, like people who would just fit that zany type of character. Then they mentioned, well, what about size? You know, and they started talking about Macaulay Culkin. And Danny DeVito, Wallace Shawn, and I was like, Macaulay Culkin? I'm like, really? I know he was a big star in the 90s, but I did not see him as Mxy Spitalik at all.
I think he was too busy doing Richie Rich at this time.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. And they were wondering, are they going to use this episode as an excuse to have Martha and Jonathan move to Metropolis because of the problems with the farm? And someone else responded, no, you know what? It's not about the farm. The farm is not having problems. The problem, this episode is all about your viewpoint.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like Martha and Jonathan, they've always had these issues with the farm, but they had a good outlook and they had hope. They knew that the bank, well, yeah, the bank will cover us. We'll be fine, you know? And they took that away in this episode. And that's why it seems like, oh, they're going to try to make a change with the Kents. But no, it's about the outlook, you know, just like with Ellen, you know, she didn't really change, you know, because she didn't really have any hope. She said that her character is kind of like negative, you know? So she didn't change too much aside from drinking. You know, but we saw the change in Martha and Jonathan because we see them as such positive, hopeful people. So that's what this person said. I was like, that's good. That's really good.
I agree.
Someone else had said, did this show hire a TNG writer, Next Generation writer from Star Trek? Because a omnipotent being who flashes around the universe causing problems? Is this Q? You know?
It is a kind of Q-like character, isn't it?
Let's see. They said the bartender was the best comedy part of the show. He had some great moments. And Dean also had some great moments, you know. As he realizes things are repeating, Dean goes through the motions. There was a moment when he's like mocking Ellen, you know, saying she's going to do this. They thought it was good comic stuff on his part. But yeah, we didn't even mention the bartender. He was great.
Yeah, he was really good. Have you ever had fifth dimensional beer? And he goes, oh, I don't go for those imports.
Exactly. It was very good. This episode showed that Clark needs Lois the way Jonathan needs Martha. It's for support, to bring them back to reality, to calm them down. You know,
right.
Jonathan looks to Martha and shows Clark looks to Lois for that. So it's nice. It was nice characterization, they said. Some people weren't happy with Mxy. They said he wasn't menacing enough. He was just odd. And yeah, they know the character from the comics wouldn't work, but more could have been done to make him more impish. You know, he wasn't as humorous as he should have been. And why would Mxy Spitalik want to take over the world? Because that's a lot of responsibility. It's too managerial for a playful imp, is what they said, which I do agree with.
But at the same time, it's a Christmas episode.
It is.
It was light and airy and a bit of fun.
And then we have the second episode where they said the buzz was hilarious. They're talking about Clark's powers. Like, no, I didn't use a little buzz. And you could see that Dean thought that was hilarious, too, because he couldn't hold it in. You know, he was laughing. And then Lane Smith, of course, had incredible moments away from being tough guy Mr. White. There was an inside joke, they said, when Jerry calls Clark the dean of modern journalism. They thought that was great. The humor was good, they said. It was kind of like back when we had Sonny Bono as the mayor, you know, and they were talking about, you know, I got you, babe.
I got you, babe.
We had, you know, tugging on Superman's cape and all that. They said it was good to have that type of humor back. They liked that. They said it was neat that in this episode where we have Thomas F. Wilson, that we got a Back to the Future effect on the street because there was a line of fire, just like the DeLorean would leave.
Of course. How did I not pick that?
Yeah, I didn't catch it either until I read it. I was like, oh, that's right, we did. Someone was asking, why did Superman sneeze? You know, he's not supposed to get sick. And Zoomway had answered, actually, on this post and said, well, probably because his powers were so maxed out, normally he could contain a sneeze if it were happening. But now that everything's so strong, it was harder. It was hard for him to actually control even a maxed out sneeze now. You know, his involuntary actions even were maxed out, not just his powers.
Yeah.
So that was a neat way of looking at it, I thought. And then finally, someone said, you know, I just can't help but feel that this is the beginning of the end. I know we got a renewal for season 5, but sitting down at 6 p.m. because that's where it aired in their time zone, to watch this show feels strange. It's weird to have it this early.
That's early, yeah.
Yeah, so, well, we'll see.
Well, our next issue, we're talking about Sex, Lies, and Videotape, and Meet John Doe.
Now, I'll tell you this. I don't know what Sex, Lies, and Videotape is. I assume it's going to be like a whole thing where they catch maybe Clark on videotape doing something as Superman.
That would make sense.
Yeah, but Sex, Lies, and Videotape, I think it's a contained show. But Meet John Doe is a continued. It's to be continued. I know it, but I'm excited for it because it's like I think it's more than just a 2-episode arc.
Oh,
because Tempest is back.
Ooh,
he's back, and this is the one that I was talking about when we saw the Soulmates episode, and I was like, I thought this was the Tempest episode. No, this is the Tempest episode, and this I really enjoyed. I remember enjoying this next storyline after Sex, Lies, and Videotape a lot. So I'm excited.
Cool. I'm super excited now.
Whatever it is, we'll find out next week, because that's it for this issue of the Rewatch Podcast. Keep up with listener interaction by liking our Facebook page at facebook.com/Rewatch Podcast or facebook.com/Lois and Clark Rewatch, and follow the show on Twitter at Rewatch Pod. You can also visit our webpage at rewatchpodcast.podomatic.com, which has links to some of our favorite sites there, such as the forums at zoomway.net, folc.wiki.com, and the supermanhomepage.com. And don't forget, we've also got links to our archive of film Rewatch episodes.
And remember, you can always write us an email or record a voice message. Send it to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. And also, if you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving us a rate and review on iTunes. That's very helpful. And you can help support the Rewatch Podcast by heading to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast and make a monthly contribution as little as $1. And we're up on YouTube. You can find every single episode that we've ever done there. So search Rewatch Podcast and subscribe today. Alrighty, well, as always, thank you for joining me for these episodes, Tom.
Yep.
And I will just say until next time, maybe peace on Earth and goodwill towards men will mean something this year.
We gotta fly.
The Rewatch Podcast is not associated with Warner Brothers Television, ABC, Gangbuster Films Incorporated, or Roundelay Productions.
Don't believe everything you see on TV.
The use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes as provided in United States Code Title 17, aka Fair Use.
Let's get legal on this.
Music provided by Kevin McCloud at incompetech.com.
Great shades of Elvis.
Copyright 2017, The Rewatch Podcast.
Where are your beepers? We'll be in touch.